Hi, this is Andrea with Northern Whimsy Art Studio, and this is video 2 of the Mosaic Fox Kit. So in this video, we're going to do the grouting portion. In your kit, you're going to have a popsicle stick for grouting, a sponge, and a little cup of grout. With this one, we're going to be able to mix our grout directly in our cup here, so you don't have to have an extra cup for that. But you will need a container for water to rinse your sponge, and you will need a rag for wiping it off at the end. Make sure this is a rag that you don't care about. You can throw away at the end because the grout is going to stick in it. And it can be real small too. You can cut it into a smaller piece. So with that, we're going to mix our grout. One thing to keep in mind about grout is you don't want it on your hands. You're going to need some rubber gloves with it too, so put some gloves on before you do it. And then don't breathe the powder, so don't stir up the powder and breathe it. Right now you're not going to be moving it around, so you aren't going to need a mask, but you do not want to stir it up to where it makes powder, so it get it wet, or it gets airborne, sorry. Get it wet. I'm just adding some drops in there. You don't want to add too much water, so it's better to be on the conservative side. So I'm just adding a little bit, so probably 2 tablespoons, 3 tablespoons, and then kind of stirring it up, seeing where we're at. Still pretty chunky, so I'm going to add some more water. You want it the consistency of thick peanut butter is the goal. Still real chunky. And I'm just using my sponge to add water. And as you get closer to the end, it's going to go real fast. So just start adding less and less water as it gets closer to the consistency you want. A little more. And I'm just going to add a few drops here because now it's going to absorb less. So a little more. It's always easier to add more than to take away, so keep that in mind. Mix in your grout. Another thing to keep in mind is when you're cleaning up, don't rinse your extra grout down the drain. It will clog your drain, so go ahead and throw that cup in the trash can when you're done. With your grout. Okay, getting closer, just stirring all the way to the bottom and getting all that dry stuff brought up to the top. I'm going to add a couple more drops. It's still a little thick. There we go. Pulling that stuff up here. Okay, and that is looking pretty good. So I'm just going to keep stirring this and make sure all those chunks are stirred in. If I have any little chunk pieces, I'm going to swipe them across the side and get them smashed. So working at home, I would set this, or working on my own pace, I would set this down and let this sit for just a couple minutes. Just so it can absorb all those chunks in there, and you're just going to have a smoother product. But I'm going to keep moving for the video here. But you just let it sit for just a couple minutes and then stir it and then start working. And that just allows the water to absorb into some of those grout chunks, but it's going to be okay for this. It's mixing in pretty good. So what I'm going to do is take my, and I always have a paper underneath me just because this is messy and it'll protect the surface that you're working on. So I take my grout and I just lay it right onto my piece, and I use my popsicle stick to smear it in there. And I definitely am a hands-on person, so I'm going to just take my hand and start working this and smearing the grout into the pieces. I'm going to go around the edges and smear down and push them into that cracks in there. And I'm going to come back in and wipe all this off. So don't worry about hiding everything at this point. It's gonna come back here as soon as we get them cleaned up at the end. Wiping down into those edges, filling in those edges good. Okay. Down on this tail here. And I'm leaving the grout in between the lines. I'm trying not to wipe it out, so I'm kind of keeping my hands smooth as to not take it out of the lines and cracks on top of the glass, or in between the glass. Be kind of careful when you're going the edges. Sometimes there's little sharp pieces that can catch your glove. Just being gentle. A little more there. Okay, so now that I got it kind of on there for the most part, I'm going to take my sponge in here and kind of use it to help me smear it down. You can do this from the beginning too. It's just you figure out what your preference is for getting it on there. Okay, so I have it on there pretty good in all the areas that I can get with my hand or with the sponge. And now I'm going to come back in with my popsicle stick and get these areas that I can't get with that. So I'm going to come in under here, smear some in under here, smooth this stuff out, leg there. Okay, and I think those are the areas. Okay, so now, again, working on my own time here, I would let this sit for about 5 minutes and let it dry a little bit. Oh, I got my glove there. Let it dry just a little bit, and then come in and wipe it down, but I'm going to keep moving for this. So I'm going to rinse out my sponge. And I'm going to use the flat part of my sponge, and I'm just going to start wiping away. And so my pieces start to show up again. Go around the edge, but I'm careful not to wipe out, so I'm keeping it kind of flat because I don't want to wipe out the grout in the edges there. Gently wiping down, cleaning up my edge, but not wiping away the grout in between. So this is a little easier once you let it dry a little, so keep that in mind if you're working on this at home. Let it dry just a little bit before you start this step, and then you can come back in. But we're doing okay. Okay. Oh, he's pretty cute. I like the fox. I think he might be one of my new favorite. Again, remembering not to wipe the grout out of the glass lines, just cleaning up the areas that are around it. Okay, so I don't want to set them back down at this point because my paper's pretty messy, so I don't want to set them on there, but I am going to clean up the back of them. Get that all wiped away. And I'm trying to use as little water as I can. So my sponge is pretty, it's wet, but it's definitely not soggy. I'm squeezing it out the best I can at this point. I want to keep them dry as possible. So I'm going to keep working to get them cleaned up, and this takes a little bit of time to just keep wiping them down and cleaning them up. So I'll keep working on that, but I'm going to scrape off my popsicle stick and kind of give it a little rinse here. And And what I'm going to do is use my t-shirt rag here, and I'm going to get in between the areas, all the cracks and areas that I can't get with the sponge. So I'm going to take it in and wipe it. He looks pretty good. There's no major chunks on him or anything. I'm gonna put him on a clean piece of paper, but then I'm gonna come back in after he dries just a little bit. And first I'm gonna do this real quick. I'm just gonna go over him once with a sponge, so then he's nice and there's no extra on the top of the glass. But after I have it to this point, he's pretty clean. I've got him to where there's no chunks on him or anything like that. I'm going to come back in with my t-shirt rag. After he dries, you're going to see he'll get kind of hazy on the glass. And I'm just going to come in and I'm just going to clean him up with a dry t-shirt. And you'll do this a couple times to get him nice and shiny. But after he dries pretty good, that's going to be the best to get that glass pieces shiny. So that's all there is to grouting. Remember, do not put your extra grout down the drain. Thanks so much for purchasing these kits. I do appreciate it. Have a great day. Thank you.